Hi Martin Lakers, I'm sorry I wasn't able to make it to your meeting tonight, but this video will serve to update you on the rain garden and carp barriers projects. Plus, my coworker Mitch Haustein is with you tonight to answer your questions, and Mitch knows his stuff. So let's get right at it, starting with the rain gardens.
Last year, 3 rain gardens were installed around Martin Lake. Rain gardens are small depressions where stormwater runoff infiltrates into the ground. There are a number of areas around Martin Lake where stormwater runoff from roofs and roads drains into the lake with little or no treatment. The Martin Lake rain gardens really started last year when we did a stormwater assessment. We studied the 112-acre area encircling the lake and found that stormwater runoff from this area contributes 30 pounds of phosphorus and more than 8,500 pounds of suspended solids to the lake each year. We also identified 15 stormwater retrofit projects to help treat this runoff. We calculated each project's cost effectiveness, the amount of pollutants it would keep out of the lake per dollar spent. This helps us prioritize and gives us ammunition to write winning grant applications. The top 2 projects we identified were cleanouts of existing stormwater ponds on the west side of the lake that have filled in and are now doing little or nothing to clean stormwater. This maintenance need has been communicated to the township. The next 5 most cost-effective projects were rain gardens at strategic locations. Homeowners at 3 of these locations voluntarily worked with us to install curb-cut rain gardens. These rain gardens capture curbside flows and are therefore treating water from upgradient properties. A special filter box helps keep debris out of the garden. Water soaks into the ground within a day or 2. Collectively, these 3 rain gardens will keep about 600 pounds of sediment and about 2 pounds of phosphorus out of the lake every year. Right now, these Martin Lake rain gardens are new, so the plants are small and they don't look spectacular yet, but they will. Please be sure to thank Greg and Patty Moose, Mike and Paulette Elvrum, and Janet Wagner for unselfishly using their time and property to benefit Martin Lake. Funding for the rain gardens came from the Clean Water Fund, from the Clean Water Land and Legacy Amendment, a grant for labor from the Minnesota Conservation Corps, the Sunrise River Watershed Management Organization, and the efforts of the Anoka Conservation District. This year, we're looking at installing 1 additional rain garden on the east side of the lake. We will contact those homeowners in the coming weeks. Next, I'd like to bring you up to date on the Carp Barriers project, which will begin installation this year. We have funding to install 4 carp barriers plus commercial carp harvests aided by radio tracking. Funding sources include the DNR Conservation Partners Legacy Grant Program, the Sunrise River Watershed Management Organization, of which Linwood Township is the largest contributor, and the Martin Lakers Association. As you know, carp have a big impact on water quality. Their feeding and spawning activities aggressively disturb bottom sediments and destroy plants that are so important to water quality and game fish. They have inefficient digestive systems, so they eat a lot, and their waste contains a lot of nutrients in chemically available forms. They also get very abundant and dominate the fish community. We believe a secret to the success of carp in Martin and Typo lakes is moving between the lakes. Martin Lake is deeper and a good place for them to spend the winter. Typo Lake and the creek between the lakes are shallow and good spawning habitat. Accessing spawning habitat like the creek between the lakes allows carp to produce more babies than can be done in just the lakes. The purpose of the carp barriers is to prevent movements between these different habitats, thereby reducing spawning success and winter survival. It will also lengthen the benefits of commercial harvests by preventing carp from recolonizing from any unharvested areas. This isn't a new approach. There are a number of similar projects nearby. Let's take a look at concept designs for each carp barrier site. Please know that we're still making design improvements and we'd welcome your ideas. Let's start at the outlet of Typo Lake, where there are 2 4-foot diameter culverts. The design for this location includes 5 removable aluminum screens with horizontal bars, spaced at about 1.5 inches. Each screen is locked into place but can be slid upward or completely removed for maintenance. The screens are within a small cove created by earthen and rock berms. At the front of the berms is a wooden skimmer to keep debris out. The skimmer and berms are in response to concerns about floating bogs and clogging. Maintenance access is by wading into the water, which is 1 to 2 feet deep. At the north inlet of Martin Lake, at Typo Creek Drive, there are 3 5-foot diameter culverts. The water in and in front of these culverts is deep, 3 feet typically, so wading in to do maintenance would be more difficult. Flow here is slow. The design here uses 8-foot diameter vertical risers, basically culverts turned on end and capped with a grate that serves as the emergency overflow. Each riser has many horizontal openings. At the front is an emergency gate. The large surface area of a rounded riser is greater than could be accomplished with straight screens in front of the culvert, and therefore has greater flow capacity. This design is favored because the water depth at this site ensures that many openings are submerged to pass the flow, because it will be easier to clean this round structure by pulling the materials to the sides or standing on top of it, and because it's inexpensive. At certain times of the year, a lot of debris passes through this site, so minimizing clogging and maintenance is a major design consideration. We're working to find the optimal opening size. Something like 1.5 inches tall by 6 inches wide seems reasonable. This would pass some debris, but only the tiniest fish. It has excess flow capacity to accommodate some clogging. It could pass 14 times more water than is coming at it during average water levels, and 3 times more during the highest water levels. At the south inlet of Martin Lake, there's a single 6-foot diameter culvert. Water here is shallow, often a foot or less. Little carp movement occurs through here now, but if we cut off other carp exits, we don't want them to start heading through here toward Island Lake. A vertical riser, just like the one at the north inlet of the lake, is under consideration. However, few rows of openings would be submerged at such a shallow site. Another option is pivoting bars on the downstream end of the culvert. The pivoting bars approach uses several rows of bars that swing independently to pass large debris. Smaller debris still needs to be cleaned manually. The last site is the outlet of Martin Lake, where there's a weir with a short drop to the Sunrise River. Carp can jump into the lake by this route. At times, the water level in the lake and the river are nearly equal. Here, the outlet can be rehabilitated and fashioned with pivoting bars. First, we can prevent floating bogs from approaching with deflector posts in the lake. Then, 2 sets of bars, spaced about 1.5 inches, can be affixed to rehabilitated concrete at the weir. The top set of bars hang nearly vertically and pivot in the downstream direction to pass objects. These rest on a lower set of bars, which are affixed to the weir near water level and are nearly horizontal, though angled slightly downward. For all of these carp barriers, design decisions will be firmed up at a meeting of agencies and engineers at the end of April of 2012. Based on when the different sets of funding are available and which tasks the grant funds can be used for, we plan to install the 3 Martin Lake barriers this year, 2012, and the Typo Lake Outlet barrier next year. After all the barriers are installed, we'll implant radio tags into 10 carp in each lake. These tagged fish will help us locate the schooled fish for commercial harvest shortly thereafter.
Martin Lakers, one thing I would like you to consider doing tonight is renewing your commitment to assisting with maintenance of the carp barriers. In the coming weeks, the township is going to consider taking a broader maintenance and operations role, and I'd like them to know exactly where the Lake Association stands on this. So, towards that end, please consider taking a vote for a commitment of light volunteer maintenance to upkeep the carp barriers. In addition, you might consider a show of hands. Who's willing to put some of their own time into this? That could be a very meaningful thing. So what exactly do I mean by light volunteer maintenance? Well, this is going to be pretty simple stuff. Cleaning debris from the face of the carp barriers with a garden rake or a similar tool. In the spring and in the fall, this is probably going to be a weekly, maybe every other week sort of activity. In the summer, it'll be less frequent, every 2 to 4 weeks, and in the winter, nothing at all. If we consider that each barrier may take, let's say, 20 minutes to clean on average, and there's a little travel time between them, we might be looking at 1.5 hours to 2 hours for each cleaning. Now, our engineer will provide us with more information on exactly what sort of maintenance he thinks will need to be done. However, I can tell you for certain that we're going to be living and learning here a little bit. Each situation and each design will have its own unique needs and its own frequency of cleaning that's needed. Some more and some less. On the topic of funding, last year you committed $5,000 to this project as a lake association and told me I should come back if additional funding was needed. I can tell you now that the funding situation looks solid. In the coming weeks, we'll be doing any final design revisions and the construction bid process. I think we've got good cost estimates on these things, but there's always a little bit of uncertainty, so I will reserve the possibility that we may need to come back to the Lake Association for additional funds, although I think it's unlikely. In the interest of keeping things moving swiftly, I'd like you to consider either giving your Lake Association officers the authority to consider such a request, or simply resolving amongst yourself that you're willing to come back for a special meeting to discuss something like that. Again, my interest is simply in keeping things moving as quickly as possible. As I close for tonight, I'd like you all to know that there's a project website that I'm going to work to keep updated. In fact, I'm going to put this video on that website. It's within the Anoka Conservation District's website, anokaswcd.org, and it's under the Projects tab. In addition to that, please always feel like you can give me a call or send me an email. I'd be happy to hear from you. Lastly, I'd like to thank you. Thank you for all the work that you've put into these projects and for all your support.